Hello, I'm Deborah Sword. Today, my co-host Tyson Bankert has the con.
Great, thank you. Deborah, I have a couple questions for you, a little bit of a challenge this week. So I'm sure that you've had been in conflicts before where the other person makes a rather dismissive or minimizing or gaslight statement in response to you addressing conflict. You know the kind. I've heard it often. I'm sure you as well. I didn't mean it that way. Or sorry for whatever I said. Can we just move on? So I have a few statements for you that I'd like your thoughts and feedback on, and your advice. As the author of the Conflict Owner's Manual, I'm hoping that we can kind of dig in a little bit to how we would respond to these statements. You up for the challenge?
Oh, sure. Right. But then
Okay.
after I give my answer, I'm going to ask you to add what I left out.
Okay. Great.
All right.
All right. So the first one here is you've addressed an issue with someone, and their response is, chill out. You're making a big deal out of nothing. What do you say?
Ah, okay.
Okay.
I might say, for example, let's both chill. And then you tell me why you think it's nothing, and I will listen to you. And then I'll say something like, so, since I now know why you think it's nothing, here's how it impacted me and why it felt like a big deal to me. Tyson, what would you add?
Hmm. I think I would add a little bit to the it may not be a big deal to you, but as you said, it's a big deal to me. But also the idea that nothing sounds a little bit like as if you don't care. Like nothing I said is important. So I would also want to try to like dig in a little bit around that. And the chill out, I'm not sure if I would necessarily address, but it definitely brings up this which leads to the next question, that somehow I'm wrong for even addressing this. So we've all been there expressing our feelings. And maybe you've been there where the person says, you're the only one who has a problem with this. What do you say?
Yes. Well, that reminds me of the concept of silent disagreement. I often teach with the movie 12 Angry Men with Henry Ford.
Right.
He asks questions, and the 11 jurors start to have problems with the decision too. So if someone says this to me, I wouldn't assume I'm the only one. There might be a whole bunch of silent disagreement. So I'd ask questions like, it seems important to you that I agree. What's at stake for you? Why do you want this decision? And if it's in a group, I'd ask the group, what is everybody else seeing that I'm missing? Tyson, what would you add?
Hmm. I mean, I think you really covered it, but I would say that um, I want to get to that explorative, that place of exploration and possibilities. So it's really quite isolating to have only asked me what that I'm the problem. Like I'm essentially what's really saying is I'm the problem, no one else is. And so it really kind of limits the ability to have deep and meaningful conversations when it's maybe not just me. And actually, I may be one of many who have an issue or a problem. And so getting to a consensus, I think would be really important.
Right.
All right. So the next one here is you always do this. You keep bringing up the past. You're, yeah, let me know. What do you think?
And we talked about this when we were discussing patterns, that brittle words
Hmm.
like always and keep are triggers for arguing about whether you always do something, which moves you away from the real issue. So I'd start by agreeing. Yes, I'm bringing up something that's important because it had an impact on me. I'm frustrated that it's unresolved for me while you've blocked it from your mind. Maybe the impact was bigger on me than for you, but it's in both our interests to discuss and resolve it so I can get over it and not bring it up. What would you?
Hmm. Yeah, I would add, I think what I find in back to that patterns is I'm actually exposing a pattern of behavior. So if I'm bringing something up consistently, it's something that I'm seeing consistently. And so it may seem like it might be for the first time, but it's actually a pattern of behavior that I would like for this to be addressed. And so, yeah, I am always maybe bringing it up. And so, how do we actually come to a conclusion where maybe I'm not? And I think being able to really frame it within the context of that relationship is really quite important.
Good one.
All right, the next one. I don't want to talk about this right now and probably never will, so drop it.
This one is hard on a relationship because it's dictating what someone can't say. To me, the problem isn't that you won't talk so much as you're being controlling. So I would have to ask if control is an issue in our relationship. Would it feel safe to me to raise the issue of control? It would then become a power struggle. If you refuse and I insist, that would create its own conflict pattern. So I'd ask you questions. What do you fear about raising this topic that you won't discuss? Did you come out ahead in some way so that if we talk about this, you risk losing some kind of advantage? Are you unable to do what I'm asking and too proud to admit you can't? So you won't tell me what's really going on? Is it one of those? What would you add to that, Tyson?
Person has really put up a boundary saying they don't want to talk about it. And if that's the case, I guess we would have to separate ways at the end of the day. And so for me, that's what's sort of sitting with this statement. Obviously, to your point, it's really about looking at all the possibilities, having the conversations and the dialogue in the invitation. But if no one really wants to talk about the thing that's been bothering you, you're gonna kind of have to, I think, eventually, drop it.
Yeah, and there's two things in what you said. One is drop that topic, and I would have to not raise it again. And the other about your
Yeah,
separate ways. If this person is really being that controlling, I have to ask if it's a healthy relationship for me to be in.
right.
Okay,
Um,
are you done with me yet, or is there more?
Not yet. We got a couple more. Um, all right. So you're too sensitive. It was just a joke.
Oh, yeah, I love this one. I'm sensitive, you're joking. Few of us really enjoy being told what we are. One
Mm,
competent listening skill is to not give those you messages. So in this case, I'd admit I'm sensitive so that we don't have to argue over that because it's just a distraction. I'd say something like, thank you. I try to be sensitive because that's how I show up for others. I'll accept you intended it as joking if you'll consider that it didn't land on me as a joke. And that may
mm,
be because I'm sensitive. It may be because you're insensitive. Maybe some other reason. I'll own being sensitive and ask if you'll own that your so-called joke wasn't funny. And then you tried to dodge being responsible for the fact that your words hurt me. What would you add, Tyson?
mm. I, this one is one I really resonate with because I often would say that growing up. Oh, I was just joking. When really I was actually being probably more honest than I ever was. But that joking piece for me was always in response to what I'm seeing the emotions on the other person. And oftentimes I find that even as an adult, when someone says, "Oh, I was just kidding," or "I was just joking," lighten up. I want to say, "Oh, you. It sounds like you've noticed that I was upset by that. Is that why you said that you were joking?" And it actually invites that person to then engage with the real honesty of what they said. And maybe we can then start to joke about it. But it allows for a little bit more open and honest. And I've seen that work in my experience. All right, the next one. You're not perfect either. You did something similar before.
No, again, two different things that people wrap together. When you were little and you asked your mom for something and said, well, everybody's doing it, did she say, so if the other kids jumped off a cliff, would you do it too?
You definitely have, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm still here.
Yeah. Well, it's a distraction from the issue.
Right.
So I'm not perfect. That's not so hard to admit. So whether or not I've done the same thing before is a deflection from the issue. In this case, I would try to problem solve this one because otherwise it becomes a downward cycle of who earns the most frequent offender points. Having cheerfully admitted that I'm imperfect, I would suggest that we both try to do better to maintain the quality of the relationship. And I would suggest that we both own our contribution rather than accusations that distract and deflect. What would you add?
Yeah, I think I would add, the idea of you did something similar before. I'd actually be really curious to know a little bit more. What have I done before? What 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 part of that assumption that you've made or that feeling that you have that really that you're wanting to add into it? I actually don't know at the moment what that thing is, and maybe there's some truth to that, and we can actually start to your point, learn together and have a better relationship moving forward. And so it's clearly we're both doing something that's really irritating, and it sounds like it might be, very similar. So, okay, last one. I was really only trying to help. I guess that's what I get.
Oh, and maybe you were trying to help. I
Yeah,
can't know your intention because it's invisible to me. I only see the results in your words and actions, and then I interpret them the best I can based on my knowledge of you and my worldview and my ways of thinking. I might apologize for misunderstanding and say I'll show more appreciation in the future, but I might also doubt your intention and believe you're covering up after the fact. I might call you on it with a pointed question. What part of what you just said was intended to be helpful? Or how did you think that doing that would be helpful? But if we have a healthy relationship, I might try poking at you with a smile, say something like, if that was supposed to be helpful, Tyson, please don't show me what unhelpful looks like.
right.
What would you add?
Oh, I think this is why you are the author of Conflict Owners Manual. I think that's a really great response. It's yeah, like you thought you were being helpful, or maybe you weren't, but it's really about well, I didn't feel that that was helpful, and I wasn't trying to make you feel bad about it because the that's what I get piece is kind of it's a little bit dismissive of how of me having been brought up an issue. But yeah, overall, I think these were all really great responses to questions and statements that we all sort of hear often when we're in conflict with someone. So thank you so much for being able to provide more space and more exploration to these statements that can feel really limiting in our ability to hold conflicts.
And thank you so much, Tyson, for springing them on me as a challenge.
You succeeded.
So did you. Thanks very much for listening. We hope you'll subscribe to our podcast, like, share, leave comments, and please return for more of the Conflict Owners Manual. Thank you.